We are going to be covering one of the most prolific things going on in America right now, and that is wokeness that is trying to separate us from our children, separate us from our religion, separate us from our past, our family traditions. To help me understand what is going on, I have AJ Rice with me. AJ, thank you so much for coming on today.
Brother Stephen, great to be here. Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Festivus, and all the rest of us.
So you've been behind some of the biggest names in America getting their broadcasts out, getting their books out. You've got your own book out, which we'll talk about later. But how? So I want to go through, in your mind, from your perspective. You write for a bunch of different news outlets. You've brought some of the biggest authors forward. What are some of the biggest woke worries that you have for the United States right now?
Well, very few books that came out on wokeness existed before mine. Our client, Vivek Ramaswamy, who we know well, we work with, is one of the few. He touches on, a little bit of where it came from, and also a little bit about how, in his world, as sort of an investor and a business guy, how it has infected corporate America, and it absolutely has. And I get into a little bit of that too. But there's an origin story here about what wokeness really is, because people are asked to define it and they can't always do that, right? Because it's a moving target. It started out as Baskin and Robbins flavors, and now it's like the Crayola 64 box. So every day you could rewrite a chapter of my book every day based on what's going on, because you're talking about many shades of this, right? So if you're gonna try to bring together a unified theory of wokeness, at the core of all of this, and it affects everything, is cultural Marxism. So this isn't, granddaddy Marxism, that it's an economic theory and the workers of the world they're gonna unite, and the factory workers are gonna overthrow the country, and capitalism will be thrown down. It dawned on many socialists and Marxists about 100 years ago that wasn't going to fly here, mainly because our blue-collar workers are patriotic people. So the idea that a bunch of longshoremen and oyster farmers and lumberjacks and blacksmiths and people that sweat copper are going to, storm the White House, it's not going to happen. Because in most cases, you're talking about people that work with their hands, people that built the country, immigrants, whether be it from Poland or Ireland or Italy. They just got off the boat. They're escaping some kind of tyranny, either religious tyranny, political tyranny, Napoleonic wars, anti-Catholic bigotry, or they had seen Marxism spread across Europe a little bit. So they're trying to escape some dump, some Lenin-Stalin-esque dump. And they get here, and they certainly don't want to bring that here. So what did the Marxists do, Stephen? Oh, they looked around, right around World War I, and they thought to themselves, I know, let's infect the institutions. We're not going to get the blue-collar rebellion. Let's infect Broadway and the silent picture industry and the newspaper business and the Democrat Party and the public sector unions, right? Let's do that. Let's get in there. Early radio. And then we'll do, because we're patient, the long march. So you fast forward 100 years, here we are. The long march through the institutions has happened. And these are pretty much the same people we're fighting today. And with a few exceptions like Musk and Thiel and a few others, big tech is the one sort of thing that they didn't have 100 years ago that they have today. It kind of acts as their force field, their sort of midair fueling tanker. It protects them. It decides which shows get to exist. It decides who gets deplatformed and demonetized and shadow banned. It allows doxing of certain people. So if you're Brett Kavanaugh or you're Tucker Carlson, we'll allow your address to be published online. Now, if you criticize trans, if you criticize the vaccine, if you criticize what happened on January 6th, if you criticize Joe Biden, the meat puppet, then you get shut down. They make you go away. So for me, if you want to understand wokeism, at its core, it's cultural Marxism. It's, basically the controlling of the language. It's authoritarian for sure. And it comes in all the different flavors. Like I said, you got BLM and you got Antifa, you have Occupy Wall Street, and you've got the 1619 Project and the social justice warriors. And a lot of people on the left didn't realize this. You also have a new flavor that has come into the Ramadan season that we're approaching here. The new flavor is, and our friends, the socialists, the left-wing Jewish socialists that are famous, like Sarah Silverman and Amy Schumer and Michael Rappaport, they didn't realize that they were in the escape hatch with these people, is the pro-Hamas crowd. Everyone was shocked when Black Lives Matter supported Hamas, when they supported the attack on October 7th and the just grotesque, disgusting terrorism against Israel at the kibbutzes, against children, against old people, against women. And they were shocked. Oh my gosh, I supported Bernie Sanders. I had no idea that we stood for this too. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Totalitarianism, which is what wokeism is, comes in all the flavors, and they're fellow travelers. They travel together. So that's why you can have Gays for Palestine. That's why you can have, Susan Sarandon and Ashley Judd and Madonna outside the White House with a pink pussycat hat, saying, I'm going to blow up the White House. And next thing you know, some of those same sort of Me Too movement people are in the streets, pro-Hamas. So yes, it's flowing forth from the college campuses. It's flowing forth from some of the media, but don't be shocked. Cancel culture is totalitarianism. So whether you're Salman Rushdie getting stabbed by a radical Islamist, or your Jewish students having to hide on campus because they are hunting you like a Kristallnacht, like a modern day Kristallnacht on campus. So that's where we're at. We're inside their sort of dress rehearsal. Wokeism is all around us. It's in the bathtub with Bud Light. It's in the NBA. It's in Disney. So with the book, look, I try to tackle as many of these topics as possible. There's 10 sections, and each section's kind of is filled with humorous and horrific vignettes, right? Because when we're talking about wokeness and not just books or podcasts or who's running for president and who isn't, you gotta have some humor. You gotta have some humor. Now it may be gallows humor, but you have to have it. And look, that's what humor is. I think one of the definitions, I don't know whether it was Carlin or Pryor, they used to talk about tragedy plus time, but also the ability to transform horror into humor is the definition of comedy. So that's what we try to do. I try to do it in all my interviews, and certainly the book does that as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you brought up Disney, for example. They're a company that I know many people in Utah that have said to me, we're not going to Disneyland this year. We're not going to Disney World. We don't want to support them. And for the last 3 years, they've been pushing more and more this LGBTQ agenda, which, I know there's gay people. I know that there's lesbians, like all of these people exist. But to cram it down people's throat, especially children's throat, a lot of people are now, there's a backlash, right? And Bob Iger is brought back after the disastrous Bob Chapek, I think his name was.
Chapek, yeah, Bob Chapek.
So Bob Iger just admits, finally, after saying, oh, well, this film failed because Americans are homophobic. This film failed because Americans are racist. They kept blaming the failure of their films on us. And finally, Bob Iger admits, we now make content that our customer doesn't value. And are they going to change? Probably not, because they've been captured from within, and they can only see through the lens of continuing to push more and more on the American people that they don't really want, What are your thoughts on what's going on with Disney right now?
Sure. Whether it's sports or companies like Disney, which own ABC, they own ESPN, which have gone very woke with a few exceptions. They let The View do whatever the hell they want every day. Other than Stephen A. Smith, who sometimes sounds sane, sometimes doesn't, ESPN is pretty much woke. I mean, they lost, Whitlock, they lost Sage Steele, they've lost a lot of people, a lot of talent. With Disney and Disney Plus and Disney Junior, I will tell you, I have one rule of thumb in all of this, and I've said it a few times. I want to reiterate it here. If you're going to bring forth the magic of Disney, if you're going to create children's programming, you have to ask yourself one question, and it's the only question. It's the only question, ladies and gentlemen, is this. What would Walt Disney do? Would Walt Disney have a ton of trans characters? Would he have Mary Poppins become a lesbian? Would he have, Mickey Mouse change his gender and Goofy come out as gay? What would he do? Okay? Because they put out these movies like last year, Strange World. Well, Strange World had a strange audience. It didn't exist. There is no audience for this. You're talking about trans people, you're talking about 1.3% of 320 million Americans. And when you're talking about gay people, you're talking about 5 or 6% gay and lesbian, the people that don't want surgeries or hormones. And that's the question we have to ask ourselves. It's the question the NFL does. When the NFL rolls out the Black national anthem, I asked black conservatives, just regular people on the street, Hispanic people. I asked everyone. Did you know there was a Black national anthem? No one had even heard of this thing. So 13% of the culture of the American people are African American. So what's that? That's the 13% national anthem. So Disney's programming to 1.5%, 6%. This is not entertainment. This is not something wonderful for your shareholders. This is not going to put butts in the seats. This is activism. This is activism. This is you saying, I don't really want to make money. I mean, you quoted Iger a minute ago. I don't want to make money. I'm here to do two things. Virtue signal on one hand and shape the minds of the youth coming up on the other. Groom them. Normalize certain behaviors. I used to be the executive producer of the Laura Ingraham show, and Laura and I, 15, 20 years ago, we used to joke on radio about this book, Tommy Has Two Mommies. And everyone laughed at the slippery slope argument. If you normalize this, then you can normalize that, you can normalize this. And here we are, 15 years later, and Tommy doesn't just have two mommies. Tommy's mommy's become his daddy. His mommy's ran off with, a midget from the circus. I mean, we have lost our minds where we're at. Tim and Jim are in the women's locker room. And I guess parts of Disney, like the woman that was in charge of Marvel, Iger had to get rid of her because she was just taking these comic books and inventing this character and that character. It's one thing if you want to make Nick Fury black. Fine. We all love Samuel L. Jackson when he's not talking politics. I get it. But some of the stuff Marvel has done, some of the stuff that Star Wars has done, and look, Disney owns both of those. That's two of their biggest sort of tentpole money-making franchises. And there they are, right? Yoda's got a rainbow lightsaber. No, I'm joking. He doesn't have that. But look, but they're basically saying to themselves, and I've said this about the NBA and a few other places, I think they sit back and they say to themselves, and Jimmy Kimmel said this. And remember, Jimmy Kimmel's on ABC, which is owned by Disney. Kimmel says, I went into the board at Disney and I said to them, I'm not going to stop making fun of Trump or Trump supporters or DeSantis supporters. I'm not going to do it. So if you want to fire me, you fire me, Disney. I'm not going to do it. I don't care if I lose my entire audience. Wow. So that tells me, unlike Johnny Carson, unlike even Jay Leno, and if you want to go back, to Merv Griffin and, Dick Allen, and you can go back in time here in the Wayback Machine. They are not trying to bring programming that the audience wants to see. They all tell the same jokes. I mean, look at the late night lineup. It's all a bunch of Gen X, doughy white guys, all telling the same lazy jokes. They took their Sarah Palin jokes and they turned them into Donald Trump, DeSantis jokes. That's what they've done. It's laziness. It's comedic laziness. And look, guys like Leno know it. And there are some other people out there. I think Maher knows it. I think Bill Maher knows it. And Bill Maher's, he's a different breed because he's always, a libertarian type guy. Yeah, he might not like Bush or Trump, but he also doesn't want to be put up against the wall and executed by totalitarians for telling jokes. And Chappelle doesn't either, and Ricky Gervais doesn't either. They don't want to do that. So that's where you're at with Kimmel. And then you take a larger snapshot of all this and you say to yourself, well, if they don't want our money and voting with our wallet doesn't work, what's the calculation, Stephen? What is ESPN and the NBA and Skittles and Nike? What's the calculation there? And I think the calculation is they will replace the consumers they lose. And I know Bud Light thought this. I mean, that crazy person, the woman who put the trans creature in the bathtub, she's gone. And look, Coors and Miller responded. They went old school. So they stole some of the audience share. They stole some of the market share. That's good. But I think the goal here is they think to themselves, and a lot of these corporations, I think, make this calculation, we'll replace the American consumers, the audience of this show, we'll replace them with Chinese consumers. We're not going to operate like an American company, okay? We're going to operate like a global company.
Yeah.
A company that, will pump our garbage into the third world or get sweetheart deals from, the CCP and Xi Jinping. And that's what they're doing. That's the calculation. In sports, that's why LeBron came out not in favor of the Hong Kong protesters. LeBron James came out in favor of the regime that was cracking down on them. Why? Because he and Warner Brothers were scared he was going to release this Space Jam 2 turd, which is like the sequel to the old Michael Jackson Bugs Bunny movie, which was great, from the 90s. He was going to release this in China, and he didn't want that distribution disrupted. So that's where we are. You're going to be replaced. 1.3 billion Chinese. I hope everyone's excited about it, Steve.
Yeah, wow, that's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, they are believing, wait a minute, whatever we lose in America, we'll just pick up double in China, right?
Triple.
But China's not going to put up with that crap. They don't even allow men that aren't masculine to be on shows anymore. They don't allow men with earrings to be on TV anymore. They're going back to this: men are men and women are women. We don't want effeminate men. We want strong superheroes. So they're making a lot of these changes, and Hollywood is pushing back like crazy because they're like, wait a minute, no, we have this agenda that we need to push down the throat of the American people. And even China is now starting to push back on that. But you're right. For every person that they lose in America, they're hoping to pick up 2 or 3 people over in China.
Sure. I mean, look, China can, crib off of Andrew Tate about masculinity all they want, but they get what they want from everyone. They get apologies from the NBA. They got an apology from the John Cena when they were promoting Fast and Furious 9 because he said something about the Hong Kong protesters. He's on Instagram filming an apology in Chinese. They got Disney to edit the Mulan movie, the live-action Mulan movie. They've got the NBA dancing on their puppet strings for sure. So, yeah, they're going to pump masculinity into their own people because they love. And look, you pick up a copy of my book, Brigadier General Robert Spalding gave me a blurb for the book, Air Force General, China expert, and he gave me the blurb. And in the blurb, what does he say? He says, the Chinese love anything that makes America weaker, which means the Chinese love wokeism over here while they're pumping masculinity stuff on their people because they want to win. They want to win. Because when they meet us in the alleyway someday, and they probably will, they want to win, right? They want us to be the guy with the Bud Light pounders in the bathtub. They don't want us to be Sergeant Slaughter. They don't want us to be, you know, like Colonel McGregor. They don't want us to be that. They don't want us to be Tate or Rogan. No way. They don't want us to be, you know, Dana White and the gang. They want us to have linguini spines. That's what they want. So they're so yeah, they love it. They love the wokeism here. Over there, they pick and choose what they allow through, right? They don't want to showcase effeminate men. You're right. So, and they're patient. They've got a 10-year plan. They've got a 100-year plan. And the dragon is just sitting there checking its watch, watching us eat ourselves, fighting over craziness, you know, fighting over our own history, fighting over, you know, surgeries for children, changing their gender. They are laughing at us. They are laughing at us. And they show it to their people. And they say, look at the weak Americans. When the time comes, they're just going to surrender. And certainly, you know, the meat puppet in the White House right now, shuffling about, I call him the leader of the Woking Dead. He's like the, you know, the reanimated corpse. He's the leader. You know, I mean, him and Blinken, I mean, you think the Chinese are afraid of him and Blinken? Winking, blinking, and nod, right? Biden and the SecDef and Blinken. I mean, forget it. They are not shaking in their boots, right? I mean, look at this display that happened allegedly in the U.S. Senate. The Democrats got something very interesting for the American people for Christmas. It was apparently a staffer from U.S. Senator Democrat from Maryland, Ben Cardin's office, who was having a good time naked in the chamber that debated World War II and the chamber that debated the abolition of slavery and the chamber that debated the Civil Rights Amendment. Gay sex for Christmas. That's what the Democrats got us. It was, Stephen, I have to go here. It was quite the, you know, stocking stuffer. It was the stocking stuffer that America didn't want. So look, can you imagine how that plays in with ISIS and Hamas and in Venezuela with Maduro? And I mean, we look like a depraved bunch of fools. We do. And we could joke around about it, and I have been. But it's serious business. I mean, it's the pornification of government, right? P.J. O'Rourke wrote that book, great book. I use it. It's one of my touchstones for how I write myself to some degree, although I'm a millennial and, you know, PJ was way better educated than me. I went to state schools. It's like the Parliament of Whores, right? He wrote that book. Well, we have a parliament of porn right now going on. It's really sad. It's outrageous. A lot of Americans cannot put freaking food on their table. They can't buy their children Christmas presents. You know, they're getting turkeys and hams from their church. And we have an employee that we all pay for making porn in the Senate chamber. It's really a sad, it's a sad thing.
Yeah. You know, I interviewed the QAnon shaman guy who was arrested on January 6th. I thought I knew where that interview was going to go. I asked him, why were you there? I think, oh, to support Trump or whatever. And he's like, you know, there's these energy lines that run through Washington, D.C. And as a shaman, one goes right through the Senate chamber. I was there to pray over the safety of the country, right? And I was like, okay, you know, that's his thinking. But then you have this other guy busted over the weekend, filming himself having gay sex in the Senate chamber. And then he pulls a Disney. Do you know what he did? He blamed Americans for being homophobic. Not the fact that he was doing, you know, sexually lewd acts with another person in these special parts of our country, but he blames, he says the reason that this was, you know, blamed was because we're homophobic, not because you shouldn't have sexual relations in the Senate chamber.
I mean, right. I mean, you know, and film it.
And film it.
And look, that's what all these activists try to do when they get caught. And look, I'm in the swamp myself. Okay, I'm from Philly originally. I'm sure everybody can hear that, but I've been in DC now for 20 years, so I've seen these people and how they behave. They do operate inside their own little formaldehyde jar of stink. I mean, they do. They only communicate with each other. This ain't the old days. So, this isn't Tip O'Neill and Reagan drinking beers at the Irish pub. That's not what's going on. So you have radical factions that they don't care about any decorum. They don't care about any of it. Now, granted, look, we're a wild people. We've been a wild people since the Boston Tea Party. We're wild. But, I mean, when you're talking about doing what they did in the Senate chamber, this is the sort of extrapolated logical conclusion of wokeism, of the woking dead. Because these people, whether they're trans activists or, the gay mafia, whatever they are, BLM, there's really no line they won't cross. And, they are basically zombies because they only are in these little snow globes of people that think like them. So I call it it's like a peer contagion, and it moves about their group. And I'm assuming, I mean, the people that filmed this and did it, they had no shame. They had no shame. They wanted maybe a viral moment. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they thought they were doing, but it's activism combined with the social media world we're in, sensationalism, the fact that shame is gone. So alternative lifestyles are now operating in the sunlight where we can all see them. So there's nothing preventing them from saying to themselves, this is not normative behavior. That's gone. That has been shattered. And that was the goal, to sort of erode standards and sensibility. And look, I'm not a censorship guy. You read the book, you'll know that. You listen to me, you'll know it. I can do interviews on CBN, and I can do interviews with, comics like Nick DiPaolo, right? So it's not about being a prude, and it's not about homophobia. Remember when they told us that we needed gay marriage and to stay out of the bedroom, stay out of our bedroom. Republicans always say stay out of our wallet. They say stay out of our bedroom. How dare you, Rick Santorum? How dare you, Mike Huckabee? How dare you, Pat Robertson? Stay out of the bedroom. Well, look, we stayed out of the bedroom, and what happened, Stephen? The bedroom moved. The bedroom is now in the middle of the Senate chamber, where Supreme Court justices are confirmed. So the room where Thurgood Marshall was confirmed, and Clarence Thomas, and Sandra Day O'Connor, who we just lost, big moments of American history. And now, apparently, sadly, we just had another one, and it was X-rated. So, look, Democrat Party, they keep showing why they're a party of adults, don't they?
Yeah. Speaking of them, do you think that Biden will actually be the Democrat candidate in 2024? I asked this because I read today 60% of Americans want a third-party candidate. New polling data out this morning shows that Trump and RFK Jr. are beating Biden handedly. Biden is tied to his family's crimes, whether he was actively a part of them or not. His son is definitely guilty of gun laws and evading taxes. He's probably going to have to pardon him, which is going to bring a lot of fury down on him. He's old. He's losing his mind. Is this guy going to be the Democrat front runner, or are they just letting him be out front until they can take him off the stage?
Well, look, I mean, Kamala is running around in front of him, dropping banana peels a lot, and she's doing pratfalls, and she's rigging booby traps all around because this is going to be her only shot. she's almost as bad as he is. You know, I don't know. You know, the Democrats thought she was Obama. You know, female Obama. I think even the Obamas thought that at one point when she was the Attorney General of California. But she has really turned out to be, you know, a backbencher. She's really turned out to be really a lightweight, devoid of substance. You know, just sort of a composite of all the different grievance groups, and they formed like Voltron. It's like, well, she's the first this and the first that and the first person to use chopsticks and the first, you know, it's just insane. But with Biden, look, a perfect storm is brewing, because it's not just RFK Jr., who, full disclosure, we work with on his books, and you know, we work with the campaign and his publisher. And like I said, we work with Vivek and we work with Trump. So they're the three people we have relationships with, either directly or tangentially or indirectly, through various people, a lot of which have been on the show. So whether it's Christina Bobb or Peter Navarro or you know Pierre Corey, I mean, we work with all of them. So with Biden, it's weird because he's got Cornel West pulling people, he's got RFK pulling people, he's got Jill Stein apparently is going to run. I don't know whether Marianne Williamson can pull many people other than the shamans that look for the fault lines going through DC, and the vortexes, you know. And then of course looming is this idea that you've got Joe Manchin going to try something, right? Yeah. So, you know, Trump could win with a plurality vote. I mean, Bill Clinton never got 50% of the vote because he had Perot and Buchanan and Nader and these different characters pulling votes. So Trump could get reelected with 46% of the vote, you know, and win the Electoral College that way too. So, you know, that's where we're at here. Will he be the nominee? I think they have proven that the Fetterman strategy works. So you've got, you know, Sloth from Goonies, Uncle Festerman. They put him in the basement. They kept him in there as long as possible. They don't want him debating Dr. Oz until the last minute, you know, a month after early voting in Pennsylvania had started. So no one had seen him discombobulated for a month of voting. So they ran up the score. This is what they're doing with this early voting. They're running the score up. You know, Republicans think that they're virtue signaling by voting on election day. Well, that might have been okay before the bundlers and the mules and the early voting, but not anymore. You got to get out there and you got to go get your people wherever your people are. And that's what they did. They did it with Katie Hobbs, who's now the supposed governor of Arizona. They kept her away from Kari Lake, my client, who would have cleaned her clock, would have gave her a buzz cut, Katie Hobbs. So they put her in the basement, put Fetterman in the basement. And I think, look, they'll just, you know, prop Biden up, you know, in the closet as long as they can. They will prop him up like a scarecrow in the closet in the White House basement as long as they can. So yeah, he will be, unless there's some kind of dramatic event at their convention. But their rules, the Democrat convention's rules, don't really allow for, you know, a brokered convention like the Republican rules do, like what happened with Ford and Reagan in '76, right? So, you know, Gavin Newsom can't exactly float in like Caesar and take over because of their superdelegate rules and all this other crap, you know, that the Democrats use to rig their nominating process. I mean, Donna Brazile flat out said it. She said, look, Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary rigged the election against Bernie Sanders. They rigged it. So if they want the meat puppet to serve a second term, they will get that. And look, guys, the deep state, the pharmaceutical companies, the Woking Dead, they love Biden as president. because he's kind of like Ron Burgundy, right? Like he's like potpourri. Like you get whatever the hell you want out of him. He'll sign whatever you want. He'll read whatever's in the prompter. He's a meat puppet. You know, sign here, sir. All left-handed golfers are being sent to Gitmo. Oh, there goes Phil Mickelson. He's going to Gitmo. There he goes, right? So whatever you put in front of them, they love it because they can fulfill all their hopes and dreams through executive orders, through phony wars in Ukraine, and all kinds of stuff. That's what they're doing. They love it. If they could keep him, you know, on life support with sundowner syndrome, shuffling about for 12 years, for 16 years, they would do it because it allows them to run around and do whatever the hell they want because nobody's watching the store. No one. These cabinet secretaries are like running these little feudal kingdoms, right? They love it. They love it. They're going to try to keep them as long as possible. Don't believe the phony polls where the Democrats are, you know, the regular Democrats might not like Biden. They thought they were going to get normalcy. You know, they thought they were going to go back to, you know, I guess, you know, get away from some of the stuff they didn't like about Trump, I guess. But what they got is, you know, eggs and Philly cream cheese and gasoline and everything, inflation going through the roof. So that's what they got. A lot of the regular folks have buyer's remorse, which is why you see some of them floating towards West and Stein and RFK Jr., right? But my point is the core of the Democrat Party, you know, the people that still run the show, as much as they want to let us think that the Squad and AOC run the show, they're still in there, right? The Clinton, you know, Bloomberg, Ed Rendell, Obama people, they're still running the show, and they're going to hold on to him no matter how many tubes they're going to put into him as long as possible.
Just really quickly, you know, you've got this in the background, but I've been reading this, and thank you for sending me a copy. Some of the quippy comments you make about Obama and AOC, you know, you just mentioned her name. Such a great writing style. I can't wait for people to read this book. Tell us a little bit more about what is in The Woking Dead, what we will get out of reading that book.
Well, look, if you like this interview, I write the way I talk. I represent the small sliver of the universe that represents Joe Pesci conservatism, okay? So Dennis Leary conservatism. So look, we bust people's stones. We have fun. You know, Andrew Breitbart was a mentor of mine. And, you know, he used to say, you know, the American people, they care about their culture. Talk about it. Talk about your culture. They don't care who's running for dog catcher in Des Moines. They care about their culture. So engage, you know. So take on Disney, take on Bud Light. You know, make fun of Elizabeth Warren if she thinks she's Pocahontas. You know, crack jokes. You know, we're going to have an election here without Rush Limbaugh. You know, Rush used to say that his job was to, you know, use irreverent humor to illustrate truth. And look, I grew up with Rush. I also grew up with Howard Stern. You could probably hear both of them here. In fact, the three of us share the same birthday. We're all born on the same day. I mean, not the same year, but the same day. And look, you have to have some fun with it. It's serious stuff. The book is 98 vignettes. You don't have to read it cover to cover. You can jump around. And I'm working on a sequel, right? So I'm a big fan of the interconnected universe, right? I'm going to be the anti-woke Harry Potter, where you're going to have a series of these things where I take on the different flavors of wokeism. And the sequel should be out next year. But look, you're going to see your family at Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah. Get some copies of The Woking Dead. You know, after you say your prayers and everyone starts eating, you know, stand up like Aunt Bethany in National Lampoons and read some passages if you've got a liberal uncle or a crazy nephew who's got a skull full of mush. You know, try to trigger at least one person over the holidays. If you can do that, ladies and gentlemen, I will have done my job with the book, right? So have fun with it. You know, we try not to take ourselves too seriously. If you can hang a joke on someone, I think that will last longer than going into some brilliant, philosophical argument about, doom and gloom. Be a happy warrior and grab a copy of The Woking Dead.
Yeah. Now, the thing I like about it is you blend facts. I mean, some of them I was like, did that really happen? And I went to Google and I look it up and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? But you do such a good job of bringing humor to like really difficult topics. And I've really enjoyed that. And yeah, this would be great for the holidays. I'll be spending the holidays with libertarians, with hardcore Democrats, with people that love Trump, with people that think he's Adolf Hitler. It's going to be a festivus for the rest of us, right? We call it the airing of grievances.
Exactly. That's quite the Tower of Babel you're going to. Good luck, brother.
Yeah, well, I've learned how to speak all the languages, and
you have to. You have to.
I just use love to get through all of it. But well, we could go on and on, just like your book just is full of really, really insightful information. I'm going to put a link to the book down below. If people want to follow you, AJ, what is the best way to do that?
Look, I represent PubliusPR.com. You can find either AJ Rice or Publius PR pretty much on every social media handle. PubliusPR.com. AJ Rice on on different things on Facebook and other places. And if you want to buy the book, you can go to the WokingDeadBook.com. WokingDeadBook.com. Different places have different prices for the book, but look, grab yourself a copy. You'll have a good time, and stay tuned because the sequel will be coming to a theater near you.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to come on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, sir. Hey, look, happy holidays. Whatever holiday you practice and support, and you're a patriot. You got an audience of patriots, and I thank you.
Thank you.